for joining us today. Welcome to the webinar, Fit to Win and Scale, IBM's Agile Approach to Sales Enablement. As Caroline mentioned, before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items just to make sure today's event is as interactive as possible. I'm sure you've found out by now that you have joined the presentation muted, and you'll remain muted for the duration of the webinar. However, you will have the opportunity to use both your chat and Q&A boxes throughout the presentation. So for your Q&A box, you can use that to submit any questions that you have for our presenters. And then you can use the chat box to answer any questions that Tim and Mary might ask you. And be sure to select the blue bar that says all panelists and attendees so that others can see what you have to say as well. Feel free to send in your questions at any time during the event. Tim and Mary will be answering them as we go throughout the event, so don't hesitate. And then just as a reminder, following the event, we will be sending all attendees a recording of the webinar along with the slide deck within the next 24 hours, so keep an eye out for that. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Here to kick off the content and introduce our special guest is Tim Riesterer, the Chief Strategy Officer here at Corporate Visions and author of the book, The Expansion Sale. Over to you, Tim.
All right, thanks, Marissa. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our second week of town hall style webcast. If you were with us last week, we had our good friends and partners at Salesforce here, and we talked about how sales and customer success are partnering to grow and expand existing business. This week, we're joined by another great brand and a great partner at IBM, and joined by Mary Tafuri, the Chief Sales Enablement Officer at IBM. I'm going to highlight that because, I'm going to go back and highlight that because this is a great title, Mary. Welcome to the event, but I know we've got hundreds of people registered today, and they're probably all in the sales enablement space, and they want to hear from you and IBM. But first, they probably want to know, how did you score such a magnificent title? Because sales enablement is always trying to get a seat at the table, but it looks like IBM is recognizing the importance.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the hot question or spicy question, just out of the gate. So the chief is there like a word to signal some transformation and some bold moves that we wanted to do a couple of years ago when I joined IBM and Cloud. Cognitive software at that time was only IBM Cloud. Then the family had been growing quarter after quarter. Now it's almost a majority of the software that we have in IBM is in IBM Cloud and Cognitive software. And it is a signal of also importance of the skills in our go-to-market strategy. And also in everything we do, the enablement is sitting around the table equally like all the other business leaders. So I created the title, and my boss was okay with it, so I kept it.
There you go, everybody.
In this time of transformation, he's one of the most critical roles that we have.
I'm sure everybody would agree with you who's here today, and now that they know that they can name it and claim it, we'll probably see everybody's LinkedIn title change right after this. But that's why Mary's here. She's got broad responsibility, big, bold ideas for sales enablement, and she's been gracious enough. I'm simply going to ask the questions, and she's going to share her insights with you all today. So we have an agenda. So Mary has been gracious enough to help us identify 5 topic areas for today that we're going to cover, and we'll pause between each one to see if there's any questions. So make sure to hit us up with that. But we're going to start with sort of what is this evolution of sales enablement? What are you seeing, Mary? And then we're going to talk about how. We're going to look at several ways that that you are evolving / transforming. And so this will be our agenda. And I guess the question to get it started is, what's changing? Let's talk about the evolution of sales enablement. What has it been, and where is it going in your mind, Mary?
Absolutely. So first of all, let's put at the center of our attention, who are we serving? And we are serving the sales community. When I say sales community, I really mean any kind of seller that we have in the organization, all the way from the managing director, client executive, to brand reps or digital sellers, inside sellers, and all the technical roles in support of these people that engage with clients day in and day out. So IBM, you guys know, it's a 110 plus years old company, and we have been always believing into this being the trusted advisor for our client. But what that it means in the modern era to be the trusted advisor of choice for our clients, we need to build innovators. I was really impressed a couple of years ago. I was in a mini MBA, and the professor was teaching about design thinking applied to selling, which hopefully we can have an opportunity to talk later on. But he was saying innovation doesn't happen only in the labs, it happens on the street every day. So how many sellers think of themselves as innovator? And so what do you need to do as an enablement organization to make sure that you have innovators that go and engage with clients? So you need to change how you enable them, how you create a space for growth mindset to happen. So you need to move away from episodic learning or top-down learning or overlap of different parts of the organization. An organization big as IBM, you can imagine how many people come with ideas about what the seller should know. And so, or get into the practice of inspecting. Did you complete this training? Did you complete it? Which score did you get? How many questions did you pass? And so on and so forth. So those were all negative forces, if you want, to what we wanted to build. And last but not least, brand specifics. We really wanted to break the silos that we had a couple of years ago and really build on the concept of value selling, solution selling, capitalizing on the breadth of our portfolio. So that's why all these shifts, we moved from where you see today to a continuous learning, a space where people are curious to learn. So you cannot fill the space with too many things to do, because otherwise people don't have an opportunity to self-initiate learning. And it's not about spoon feeding everything, but really tasting something and give the freedom to learn wherever they want, in any form they want, because everybody's different in the way they learn. Like my kids don't open a book anymore. That's a disaster. But you know, it's an extreme, but we need to think about different people that we have in the organization with different years of experience. How do they learn, and how we can create that space for curiosity, like I mentioned. And most of all, be humble and realize that it's not enablement the only source of knowledge. Actually, the most powerful source of knowledge is in the field. So how you can create an environment where everybody learns from each other. The experiential learning is so powerful, 10 times stronger and sticking than regular traditional learning. So all of this is important. And of course, instead of inspecting, put in place an environment where when you achieve some skills, it's the evidence-based itself that will grant you a level of skill. And we have a system where you complete some learning roadmap, you complete some activities like you blog, you post a demo on GitHub or in any other source, or give back to the community around you, and you advance in that way. And finally, everything we build in terms of content and skills activation is one IBM. It's use cases, and use cases is the common ground where multiple solutions come together. So these are all shifts. I'm extremely proud of what we've been accomplished in terms of evolving enablement, to the point that many of our sellers tell me, you should not call yourself sales enablement because you do way more than just enablement. And because there is a stigma around enablement, like, you know, people that do a lot of webinar, create a lot of content. We are not in the game of content proliferation. So we are more about skills activation and support with actionable programs, the people that are on the field. That's our North Star and what we do every day. It's along these lines.
Yeah, I like this idea of you're not about content creation and management, you're about skills activation. Can you maybe just elaborate on that just a little bit more? And I would encourage people, so this is sort of section one, the evolution of sales enablement. Type in the chat box or Q&A any questions you have about anything you've heard so far as we take each of these 5 sections. But Mary, back to that. This idea of, I think it's very profound to say it's not about piles and piles of beautiful content. It's about skills activation. Maybe help us understand that a level deeper.
So I will use this a very simple example, and I hope that helps. You don't learn how to cook just reading cookbooks, or you don't learn how to run a bike just reading books about running bikes. You need to practice, and you need to fail, you need to fail, and keep practicing. So skills activation is all about practicing in a safe environment and providing support to people that are practicing. So feedback on how they can improve. That is why the people that you need in enablement are people that come from the field. I made a lot of changes in my own team to recruit people that came with experience, to bring that fresh air and to give back to the community. And I'm using this word, and I will keep using the word, because what we built in IBM is a community of people that share. And it wasn't there at the beginning. You know, sellers are coin-operated people, tend to kind of go fast in their swimming lane and achieve and overachieve the target. That's the only thing they see. And fostering an environment where you want to drive different behaviors of sharing and rewarding people that take the time to share and help others. It was very, very important for us. So skills activation is all about practicing.
So those are not the favorite words of salespeople. If they could quiz out of something they learned versus role play or practice or perform, we see that at many companies. It's hard to get people to do the observable practice and to try to achieve a level of demonstrated proficiency. How did you get them and encourage them to actually do that?
That's a very interesting question. Before joining Sales Enablement, I was running ecosystem development. And so I was dealing with developers, startups, business partners, universities. And the dynamics that I learned about innovation and what drives innovation and engagement and different behaviors in all of this organization, often one of the most successful practice was gamification. And so when I joined this organization and I heard my boss, Steve Cowley, let's say challenge to me to say, we need to transform these people to be more confident when they get in front of the client, accelerate the skills, you know, make their brain hurt in a good way, of course. So I thought, okay, how I can create an environment where people take the time to learn and to practice and share? How can gamification be applied here? So we created a platform that is called Game On and works on our IBM cloud platform, but that's a detail. What matters is that you start to create a program where you truly reward the people and you name Tim, Mary, in a leaderboard, and you spell out why Tim is up in the leaderboard, what did he do, what did she do. So you start slowly. It's not immediate, but today, I was just looking the other day to the statistics, we have 22,000 players that played in almost 18 months now in different skill challenges that we have in the gamification platform. It's a snowball effect at some point, but you need to invest at the beginning, and you need to observe who are some people that are more, let's say, flexible, agile, and open, and use them as ambassador for what you want to do. I think it's better than you promoting your own program. And yes, you may get some followers, but maybe not too many. But if they see their peers, then they are very competitive. Sellers are very competitive. So just to give them a platform to compete, and they would go.
I nobody here is, there's not many people probably listening who have goals of hitting 22,000 participants. That's a big number. And That's impressive. And I know some of the things you just answered are things you're going to deal with a little bit later here. One question before we leave this that came, several questions have asked, well, if you're not doing content, what skills are you activating and how do you know you have the right skills? I'm assuming you're not doing zero content. I think
Of course.
right. I think it's more that that's not the end game. That's not the focus. Whatever it is that you build is, I'm guessing, purpose built for skills activation as opposed to
We do
static
create
passive content.
Absolutely. We do create content, but we are not in the game of content proliferation. So if you want to kind of ask me a percentage, how much time you spend in creating content versus skills activation, it's probably 40% at maximum of the time is spent in creating content, but the content has to be client-centric. It's not about filling the space of feature functions, but really extract from the features, if you want, and the capabilities of the offerings and solutions that we have, what is valuable for our clients. Our clients live in industry. So what are the use cases that we can package so that then all of a sudden that content become relevant? That is where it's quality versus quantity. And of course, practice around those use cases. And I was reading also the questions here on the chat line. How do we do track? I'm a big data-driven person. One of the first investment I did when I joined in this role 2 years ago was create an opening for a data scientist. Create a dashboard. And so we have our own KPIs that we keep evolve, but everything is self-service. Everything we do for our own sanity of our mind, we check how programs are working, how much they are impacting the skills growth, the productivity of the seller. But if you don't have a data scientist that is smart enough to connect data that are in different sources, you can imagine from HR sources to CRM and many other tools you're learning in company, how you can connect the dots and give intelligence out of this data and create views that are relevant for different roles in the organization, from the executive to the manager to the enablement people, different views of the data to help you constantly evolve in what we do.
So,
and also prove the value that we bring, because we need to protect this function right in the organization. And you can't convince just because you have green eyes, right? You need to convince because you bring value to the table, and data speaks more than anything else.
So there are a lot of questions coming in about straight line to what kind of measurements. And you said you actually have a data scientist or two on your team who are looking at different, I guess, data sources to give you the metrics that you're looking for. So when we talk a little bit later here, Mary's gonna identify again some of those extra, some of those measures in particular that they're looking at. But a data scientist would be handy on the sales enablement team. One of the favorite questions was, how do you know when someone is actually enabled? So what qualifies as yay? Like, what's the tape they run through to be considered enabled? So let's hold on to that one and come back to that later. But let's talk about your guiding principles. I think this will be helpful for people to see how you think and act when you organize the programs. I like this. So thank you. These are, Mary provided some graphics from her internal development here that she's been willing to share publicly. And this is one of them. So maybe take us through this and it'll be helpful in answering some of the questions.
Sure. So in short, design thinking is at the core of everything we do. So from the small program to the big programs, to the sales kickoff, to the learning roadmaps definition, whatever we think in terms of big deliverables and small deliverables are all done engaging the sellers and the tech, the various personas that we have, our internal clients, if you want, in design thinking sessions. And we started this practice a couple of years ago. Now they are waiting, but when we call them to be engaged in some decision making. So they are at the core of what we do, and we co-create with them. If you think of the best way to serve your own persona is using this powerful methodology to co-create what is in the end relevant for them. So I don't think we are super smart, but we are smart in the sense that we engage them and we listen which is also what we want them to do with their clients. In fact, one thing that we are infusing in almost everything we do is apply design thinking when you engage clients, because you have 2 ears and 1 mouth to listen twice. Arvind says listen 4 times and talk 1 as a ratio. Arvind Krishnan, our chairman and CEO. So he is fostering this culture of listening, because you can be valuable for your client as in proportion how much you're capable to listen to the needs and open up the aperture of the opportunity of what you can do with them. So design thinking, co-creation, innovation are all connected. And of course, activate and collaborate are very important. As I mentioned earlier, it's not about a lot of content, but how you practice around that content and how you have a space where they can collaborate and learn from each other. When I used to travel in previous jobs, when I was running services, I was amazed each time that you were in front of a client in Tokyo rather than Sao Paulo. You could see amazing demo, amazing presentation, customized for that industry, for that client. And I say, why can't we have an easy way to share all these customer relevant, customer strong assets? How you win against a client? It's not just the presentation or the demo, but the practice, the competitive reason to act. How do you customize that pitch to be stronger and stronger? So having an environment where people share, so you drive those behavior. You can scout talents. It's very important because you have a direct access to what they do and what they share. And you consider those talents actually as an extension of your team. When people ask me how many people work in your organization, I say, it depends, I have a very large organization. If I think in a more open source mind set, who are really the people that can help me to be successful? And these are all the sellers and the talent that we have in the organization. And ultimately that will deliver the confidence and the quality that we were aiming for. So it's an ecosystem, if you want, that we create with them.
So when you think about then delivering with confidence and quality, one of the things that I keep hearing from you is this idea of examples and experiences that are realistic. Like your favorite words are realistic. And so let me just grab that here. So realistic experiences and then examples and exercises is what I've heard you say in the past. So talk to me a little bit about how that gets built, at least at scale. Is it all like when you get crowdsourced and 22,000 people are on this thing, what are you doing for quality control and making sure that the right people are working on the right things?
So it is always a balance, right? And all the extremes are not good. And I think it matters that you create some rules and that you trust the system and that you observe how the different dynamics in the system are collaborating, evolving, and contributing. It's almost like you have kids, and as they grow, you as a parent, you need to trust that they make their own choices. You can observe, you can give some guidance, but eventually they need to grow and run with their own legs. You cannot do things for them. So I use this example because in what you try to do when you create this open environment, yes, you can have proliferation of crap. Pardon my English, if I can say. So, but of course, it doesn't last long. Who wants to expose himself or herself with a mediocre content or assets? So naturally, so far, we didn't see any evidence of that. The opposite, because they are competitive, both the technical community and the sellers. It's a race to provide the most valuable examples and experience. And I think the switch happened when we published the leaderboard. Before we didn't have that capability. We had a lot of games of different nature where people were competing to be faster in learning something, or to create or to share assets, or to identify more opportunity. For example, you launch a new sales play, and in China you're not getting a lot of traction. It's the magic what happens if you have a skill challenge around new opportunity identification and reward the people accordingly. So what I observed, it was really so far a healthy implementation of this open mindset. But you know, as this evolve, we will certainly keep an eye, and if we see that how can I say, you know, the other thing as I reflect on your question is also the longevity of the content itself or the assets that are shared. We live in such a dynamic environment. That's another reason why I am against investing on hyper curated content, because, you know, by the time that you spend in polishing everything, it's obsolete. So we use platform, of course, for content sharing, and we have now an expiration date that goes to 6 months, and that takes care of itself. So you need to be creative and be okay with that. And so if something needs to be there more than 6 months because of some, you know, good business reasons, they will let you know for sure, and then boom, you click that checkbox and you disable the expiration date. But it's an exception basis, though.
Excellent. I'm going to move on to the next one, but while I'm doing that, somebody did ask the question, do you have to create any additional incentives or change comp plans to get salespeople to take the time? You said give them the space to collaborate, but just because there's a space to collaborate doesn't mean that they're looking back saying, you know, I should help my peers today. How does that work?
It's not a charity organization yet, you wish. But no, what we do, we give so-called blue points. And blue points are tokens that give you access to a very rich catalog of things that you can purchase. And so the more you accumulate points, the more you know, expensive things you can buy, Prada purse, Omega watch, or you can buy a vacation for 2 or dinner for 2 or whatever could be the case. So there are many things that people can buy for fitness. You know, it's a very rich and wide catalog. So that's how we've been, let's say, incentivizing, if you want the. But I can tell you, surprisingly enough, it's not that much the blue points that foster this environment, but really the leaderboard. When you expose names and you say, in a market who is excelling because of what they are sharing and how many likes they are getting on the assets, etc., that is driving the snowball effect. The moment that we added those kind of features, even in our sales kickoff, everything changed, accelerated.
Awesome. Well, it's certainly leaning into the approaches and the techniques of modern times. And I'm going to guess that even as modern sellers and generationally, these things change. These are the kinds of things they're probably going to look for and expect.
Very much. That my inspiration came from, like I said, my previous job, where the average age, no discrimination, was very different, right? And when you work in the ecosystem with startups and developers, university, that kind of business partner, it's a very innovative environment, but it's also quite a very young environment too. And gamification works beautifully with them because they are wired that way. My kids learn, the school now, you learn with games all the time. It's a very powerful technique also to accelerate learning.
Excellent. Thanks. Well, we'll keep pressing on. We have a time that we have to keep, and we'll keep monitoring your questions as well. Metrics is what everybody's asking for. So we're going to save that to the end so you all stick around. So Mary, this was a visual that you provided us as sort of a way that you keep the focus on the client in the way you develop the program and drive value both to your constituents, the people you're serving, as well as ultimately enabling them to deliver value for the client. So let's talk about this visual a little bit. What does this mean to you and the way you're building out your program?
Absolutely. I'm happy to share with you. So this is a sort of a year in a page, year-long learning in one page, and what that means. We started the year It's a continuous thing though, but let's say it's 1 year long. We start with what we call the trailblazers. Our top leaders really sharing how we want to win in each of the market, in each of the function and business unit, etc. And since this very beginning, everything is about the client value. That's why you see at the very core there the client centricity. What is the value that we bring to the client, especially now with this COVID-19 challenges, how we can help our client to emerge stronger. We created a lot of offerings all just about this. And then, of course, that's not enough. We need to move very quickly, all of our sellers. When I say sellers, of course, I mean every role. I just want to stress that concept. The technical team is all included when we talk about this experience in the boot camps. Boot camps are very tailored experiences focused on, again, practicing, so skills activation. And they join a different quote unquote tracks based on the role that they play and the level of skill that they have on that role. So it's super custom on stretching them from where they are today to where they need to be. And of course, it's 1 week long. We used to do this in person in the past at what we call Fast Start. It's a 1 week, super intense, like 10, 12 hours a day with traditional hours in learning and skills activation, and then a lot of other activities during the evening where they co-create, learn, lightning talks, expo, fun time. You can learn in many different ways. So we really try to blend a variety of things, and they are never tired enough. Sometimes when we are closing the building and I go around and I see people still coding and doing hackathons, I say, it's like 10:30, I'm exhausted, you're still here coding. So it means that really they love learning, they love sharing, they love the experience that we create in these boot camps. But this year we're challenged to do this digitally, so we are extending the elapsed time over more than 1 week possibly, and we are re-engineering the way we do it, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well later. But the boot camp, it's, you are building the blocks on top of each other. The boot camp is powerful, but then can be sterile if you don't do something immediately after to put in action in the pipeline. So it's on the job, what they learn in terms of techniques or in terms of use cases and anything that is a stretch from where they were before joining the boot camp. So during the on the job, it's another like 1 month where we keep working with them. It's in a more flexible way, different touch points. And we see in our KPIs, I know that everybody's interested into that, how are they applying what they learned? So they tagged into the CRM new opportunities that they create because of what they learned, or opportunity that they are progressing, applying A or B or C. So that's why through the tagging that they do, and then the analytics that we extract on top of that, we can see which programs are working more. And also we can see very clearly how much changes the productivity of people that have a level of skill, like, well, we have 5 levels of skills from 1 to 5, where 1 is entry level and 5 is walking on water type of thoughtful leader. But we can see clearly the productivity that changes when you go up. And that's why there is this huge pressure on moving more people to the level 4 and level 5. And like somebody said, and I was watching a documentary on Netflix, it's called The Playbook. And one of the coaches, there are different coaches that are talking about their experiences. I think it was Doc Silvers, I need to see the name, but he was saying pressure is a privilege. And at the beginning, when I heard pressure is a privilege, I said, really, pressure is a privilege? Mm-hmm. But then I immediately reflect through that, and really pressure is a privilege. And the more we are pressed to do something. In this case, it's advanced skills from level 3 to level 4, level 4 to level 5. The more we see the results in terms of productivity, and ultimately the bottom line is the single thing that everybody is looking at, right? In this phase on the job, there is a very, very important role, and it's the role of the manager. I always say the first line managers are the backbone of the organization. So investing on them, it's essential. And in my first year, I was assuming that they were just ready, and I didn't do anything specific for them. And the second year, so last year, we started to invest on the first line managers. So we created ad hoc learning for them. We created an advisory council just of first line managers. We did design thinking sessions with them. And we created now a toolkit that is deal coaching just for managers to help them to engage with their teams, specifically on COVID-19 scenario and challenges that clients may have. So it's very specific, very practical. Again, it's not theory, it's very practical. And we just did another very creative thing that is called a program. It's called Selling with the Stars. And we did this at the corporate level. And first line managers have been sharing best practices all over the world. And some of the executives were judging our stars. And it was an amazing experience to go through that and to see how the winners were basically people that excelled in sharing actionable stories. So if we believe in skills activation, when we create all of these experiences where we foster people to share, we need to give guidance about what they are sharing. Because in the end, you want that if you're listening to that story, you are learning what to do to be actionable. So there are many ways that you can create an environment of continuous learning. And obviously, it doesn't stop there. After that 1 month, it's a year-long journey. And there is a continuously, opportunity to learn new offerings that we can go to market with, the new sales plays, and so on and so forth. So getting into the mindset that you're a curious learner, it's really the mantra of what we do.
So very impressive. And I think I remember you saying that the reason it starts with the trailblazers and the executive vision for your go-to-market strategy is that the tailoring of the boot camp isn't just tailoring it to skills and practice. It's tailored to the go-to-market vision. So it's not
Absolutely.
generic training. It's very situational for the initiatives that you're focused on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's
it can't
important.
be created 6 months before. We start to create it like 2-3 months. Now we are in the hot time of planning fast start, which will be when all of this will again restart at the beginning of January, the Trailblazer and so on and so forth. And so actually, I'm very, very proud to share with you all that for the very first time, we will do all IBMers together. All the sellers in all the units will be together in this digital experience. So it will be just fantastic.
I think it takes somebody with the energy you're displaying here to do all this on such a large scale.
I just had my coffee, I don't know if you can see.
Clearly. And I picture these boot camps, you have that little rocket in your picture there. Like when I think of the rocket, when you have to get through Earth's gravitational forces, they have the turbo rockets on to get out into orbit. And really the boot camps sound like it's a turbo charge, like you said, fast start. And then they plug into sort of some mainline learning after that. It makes tons of sense. Good stuff.
I'm very fortunate because I have a fantastic team. I mean, they are all excited. They work super hard. The intensity of the heavy lifting that we do, and the people that we rally around us to create the experience that Fast Start is. It's because in English, I think you say it takes a village. I now say it takes a city to do what we do because the magnitude of the experience itself. But if you mobilize and motivate people, amazing things can happen.
And speaking of amazing things, you've given us sort of your roadmap here in terms of the steps that you've taken your team through. We started to talk a lot about execution, but maybe just walk us through so people can kind of see this flow, what that looks like in terms of how you evolve the programs.
Yeah, this is really where the last, the last step of our evolution, so to speak, and that we are going on as we speak. And it's all centered around what I call mapping the skills. We had a disease company to micro check everything historically. And we are into this journey of simplification, modernization, agile, and every nice words that we said so far. So what does it mean for us, for the sellers, for the learning experience? So it means that we need to start realizing that it's not about defining each role with 150, 200 skill sets, which is, what we had until yesterday, but rather is select the 20 or 25 outcome-based skills, which are not micro, but bold skills, heavy lifting. Each one skill is like not an easy thing to do. And then, yes, offer still the possibility to stretch themselves in any direction that they have a passion or are interested. So I call them incremental skills. So what is an outcome-based skill? Everybody, even internally is asking. It's everything that is essential for you to master, to accomplish what you are accountable for. So if you are a client executive, or if you are a portfolio seller, or if you are a digital seller, what you are accountable for? A, B, C, D. They are accountable for different things. So what are the most important skills to achieve those outcomes? So those are what we call here outcome-based bold skills. And we had to even retrain our own brain to get into this new world where the definition of a skill is a different one than what we had in the past, which means redefine the taxonomy of the skills, redefine the learning journey, even redefine how we activate the skills. So we are into this continuous evolving journey, which, like I said, the planning, activation, and building the content are the steps we are working as we speak. And we are also thinking about how we innovate in what we are doing. So innovation comes creating method that everybody can follow. So even when you think of the open source works because you have some ground rules that people that make a contribution to the open source have to satisfy. So there is governance around it. So what we are doing here, defining the skill map and the bold skills, it's creating some ground rules of how the modern innovator should work on skills to bring value or maximize the value that he or she can bring to their client, and how we can be smarter in looking at each of these roles. So we are creating like an architecture of the roles that we have, and what are the skills that these people have in common, and where do they differentiate. If you define these sequencing in the right way, you can even visualize what are the elements that are common and what are different. If you can codify this sequencing, then you can define once the learning element for that piece, and that will be plugged into all the places where that learning materialize. And if anything changes, the strategy changes, or any practice, win attack, or how can I say, battle card changes, etc., you change once and it goes automatically. So we are applying some concepts that are very innovative. Actually, we're patenting. That's why I'm trying to say, and not to say too much, but I'm very excited about how we are evolving around the learning journeys as well. And this gives me an opportunity also to say, if you want to innovate, you need to create space for incubation. And that's another thing that I learned in my previous job. You always have people in whatever job you do that are more progressive, open mind, curious in what they're doing, open to experiment. So a good leader should find those people and give them opportunity to try, experiment, incubate, and that's how you can accelerate the learning. And so we have these squads and tribes, and really it's not an organization the way you can think traditionally. Yes, we do have our manager who works for that manager, for that other manager, but in the end, things start to blurry depending on what they are working on. And we all sit around the table. I always tell them, engage me if you want, to let's say bounce idea. That's the most fun part of my job, is when we experiment and co-create.
Yeah, and again, I love that you can break it down into these chunks that seem doable, but each of these bullets points has a lot going on under them for sure.
Oh yeah.
And so I can appreciate that, and the fact that that at some point here you may have something that you can trademark or patent is very
maybe I'll
impressive.
come back and I'll explain more about what we are doing here as soon as we're done with this piece of, let's say, patenting.
So 2 questions I think you can answer here. One is, a lot of this is outcomes and skills, you said, based on what they're accountable for, and client-centric activity, design thinking. How do you still mix in, like, you got new products coming out and they got to learn these products? Are you responsible for that? Or does the product organization still flood them with product training? Where does that fit into all this?
That's the, when you have to juggle the balls in the air. That's the part of the, let's say, the agility and the ability to be in the middle of the people that you need to serve. And I intentionally use the word serve, because we do serve our sellers, and the offering management that are there, shipping new offerings and new products, new solutions, and eager to stuff the turkey. No offense for the turkey and the seller, stuff the turkey with as many as information. And if Thanksgiving is coming for the people in the US, so what happens if you stuff the turkey with too much? Again, whatever you're putting there will go out from another hole. So that's not the point. And if you manage to educate your counterpart in the offering management team about why and how, if you focus on more quality versus quantity around the offerings, and focus on the value selling and solution selling more than the feature function, it's not important to memorize how many capabilities that solution has, but the most important one. And so that you can land and expand on a client side. And if they walk with you through real stories, again, we go back to be realistic. They see with their eyes, and they will be ambassador of this. 2 years ago, when we shifted fast start from being university style to bootcamp style, what that means is that in the past, we had mainly the offering management coming and dominating the agenda, with the sellers going there into this back-to-back sessions and listening PowerPoint, I would say sometimes. And no matter how good the speaker is, when you have so many of them talking for hours and days, what is 80% of what you learn is forgotten in 1 month? I mean, it's wasted time. So when we had to tell them, you will come, but you will be coaching. You will be coaching a small group that will work on a client challenge or a skill challenge. You will do you will be paired with one seller, and you will work on his or her elevator pitch or whatever it is, because we had competitive chess, we have so many different kind of experiences. Then they see, oh, it's tough to convince a client, because in the world they live, it's all about technology and power up the feature function. The client wants to know the value for them of that technology. So it's a translation. But when they get there, they see and they will be with you. But you need to walk them into that world and that experience for them to be your ally.
Yeah, if you're training and setting up a framework for how people are going to learn and they're appreciating and wanting to learn that way, it's like the products teams and the offering teams need to realign the way they're bringing their product training to match this new framework. So that one, they're not against each other, fighting each other, but two, it's matching. You just taught them to learn a new way. Now let's get the offering teams to fill their training the same way. So that makes total sense. We have just a couple minutes left and so many great questions and obviously tons of answers beneath every layer here. And we've got this whole lineup here of things that you talk about for an amazing experience. But I'm gonna see if I can, Mary. I'm looking at, we got 6 minutes. Anything you want to highlight here, and then maybe what you can talk about in terms of metrics and measures. There's lots of great questions coming in, and maybe we can try and offline answer some of those. But
sure.
Anything you want to hit on your list here of what the experience needs to be that you haven't covered, and then maybe anything you can share with people on metrics.
Yeah. So the key point I want to make here is it's all about the experience. And so we need to constantly think how we can delight our clients, again, the sellers. And these are humans, are women, are, people with diversity, with different kind of interests. So, and I think it is important that we think to all the other areas of interest that these humans have, so that we can create opportunity for them to have fun as they learn, to connect, to create that sense of community. Obviously, now that we are digital on steroids, the platform that we use has to be super engaging. So there are many ways that we look at all the possible aspects. Like I was mentioning earlier, the first line managers, the selling with the star initiative, and we have a lot of other things that we do, coachable moments. There are a lot of initiatives and programs. You need to be very creative in the way you do serve this community, so that what you are trying to seed will bloom.
So are any of these, like, you think in particular, something that you've recently discovered where you're like, this was a game changer in terms of creating an experience that people really responded and rallied to? You've been talking about gamification a lot. Is
Yes.
there anything else in here that maybe we should focus the folks on?
The gamification and the crowdsourcing, to me, that those are the two main things that were game changers. Again, because yes, no matter how smart the people in enablement are and how many you may have and are never enough, as well as no matter how many offering management you may have to create content for you, the real secret sauce is when you can engage the talents that you have in the community, and you can have that, you drive this behavior of sharing. To me, that is the key. And the gamification is just a way to constantly experiment different challenges. Challenges are games in our world, and use those to try different things and see how people react to it, and measure what makes more impact than others in terms of productivity. And the data scientists, like I said, we had so many data, but we couldn't make sense of that until we had a data scientist that was correlating and creating intelligence and easy to digest views in a dashboard that is a self-service. Obviously, we use our own products to do so, but that's a detail. The most important thing is you understand the value of it and you invest in it.
So a couple highlights or anything you want to talk about in terms of measurement metrics. Some people have been asking questions about the people who don't want to change and have been around longer, who, some people ask questions about, have your customers seen a difference in your sales force because of these things? So many different ways to measure this. What are some of the things you're kind of focused on right now?
Very, very, very good questions. At the very beginning, when we were, transforming the way we do the sales kickoff and the learning experience of the year 2 years ago with Fast Start, we've been bold in changing some things, and we knew that we would have had resistance of some of the sellers, and we did. And the point was, okay, if you think then you could be the one coaching and sharing with the others. And so we asked some of these people that are more experienced and senior to be table coaches. So instead of offering management or sales enablement people, worldwide sales people to do the coaching, say, okay, come and be part of the extended team that is the delivery team. So as we were preparing them through this to cover this role, they realized that they were less defensive because they had to play a role to help this to succeed. Coaching others, not to being the student, but to be the coach. And they were the ones saying, oh, I need to learn this. So majority of them asked us to be in the learning on the other side, but in special groups where they were more seasoned people. We call them black belt. And so they went to be challenged with a standard that was higher than other tables, let's say, for all the activities excuse me, we were doing. And that was, for example, a technique that really worked as motivator. I say, don't push. When you have resistance, figure out a way to engage them to help you, and don't push them to execute or force them to work, but find and the key can be different depending on the scenario. But in that case, for example, when they thought that they knew it all, we said, okay, fine, we need more coaches, come and help us. And they said, okay, you know what, we really need to have that program for us too. So
I like that. We need more know-it-alls. So instead of pointing a finger, you put them to work, and then they sort of maybe self-identify, like, that's something I should learn and not coach. I like the idea of a special group.
Yeah. If I can say anything to all the people here that work in enablement roles in any way, be on the trenches with your sellers. If they see you with them side by side, so many things change, so many. So I don't believe in organization where enablement is far away from the field team or from selling, because you need to be practical as much as possible, realistic, like we said, and they need to see you there. They need to see that you're engaging them to make sure that what you're doing is what they need. So very simple. It's not too complicated. Just listen to them and show them that you're listening.
Awesome. Well, we're at time, Mary, and the questions keep coming, and they are great questions. I mean, how do you, if you need to do something in the moment, how do you get their attention when they got to be selling? I wish we could answer all of them. I'm going to offer an ebook from our company, Corporate Visions, where we do talk about some of this. So, for example, how do you get people situationally enabled versus traditional, maybe long form classroom? So this is a link to that information. So Mary, I don't want to promise anything, but you and I can offline look at some of these other questions and maybe create a Google Doc, and we can answer some of them and send those out to everybody. But everybody, just on behalf of everybody who's here, Mary, congratulations on the transformation in progress. We wish you continued success. Thank you, IBM, for the partnership. Mary Tafuri, everybody. Yay, we're virtually clapping. All right, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, take care, Mary.
And if everyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, find me there and I can, answer. But yes, we can go through the questions that the people have here and we can respond to all of them. No problem.
Well, thank you for that offer. Guys. And she did extend LinkedIn to you all. So now go make friends with Mary. All right. Thanks, Mary. Good seeing you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.